praise you with my whole heart. Before the divine beings, I sing to you. I will bow down toward your holy temple and praise your name. Because of your love and faithfulness, and for you have glorified your name, your world, above all things. When I've called, you've answered me, and you gave me strength.
They shall sing of the ways of the Lord. Great is the glory of God. They shall sing of the ways of the Lord. Great is the glory of God.
All the rulers of this earth will praise you, O God, when they have heard the words of your mouth. They will sing of your ways, that great is your glory. Though you are high, you care for the lowly, and perceive the haunting far afar.
They shall sing of the ways of the Lord. Great is the glory of God. They shall sing of the ways of the Lord. Great is the glory of God.
Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you keep me safe. You stretch forth your hand. Your right hand shall save me. You will make good your purpose to me. O God, your love endures forever. Do not abandon the works of your hands.
They shall sing of the ways of the Lord. Great is the glory of God. They shall sing of the ways of the Lord. Great is the glory of God.
All of God's people say,
Amen. So each week during this series, as we talk about grateful, that's the way we'll engage with the scriptures. We'll have a way that we sing and read that together. And I think that's great. I know for some people that may feel different or maybe awkward. For others of you, that may be really exciting that we share in it together. Our hope is that it helps us participate as fully as possible in our worship and our singing. We okay there? We man down? All right. Is it okay, Larry? All right, good. That's scary. As a guitar player, I feel you. It's like an anxious moment. And so we hope that it helps us participate as fully as possible, using our voices, using our ears, using our eyes. Our hope is that we encounter our whole selves with God. So we hope that's a way for us to grow together as a church in worship. Will you pray with me? God of love and God of grace, this is your time, and we are your people. Open our hearts, our minds, and our lives to your presence, that we would receive your word and respond with all that we are. Amen. We want to discuss what it means to be grateful as a church family, to live a life of gratitude over these next few weeks together. Some of this is the world we live in right now. It doesn't always seem like we're the most gracious with one another. And some of that is, I sense sometimes a lack of gratitude for other people on the journey with us, let alone sometimes I think a sense of gratitude for at least what I have or what I can take for granted in our lives. And so what does it mean for us to begin in a place of gratitude, to begin in a place where gratitude isn't just something we feel, but it's something that we do? A conversation partner with us this whole month will be the book Grateful by Diana Butler Bass. So I lift that up to you. You may hear me reference that from time to time, but it's something I would recommend to you about considering more deeply in your heart what it means to be grateful, to recognize where God is already present in our lives, and to say thank you for that. When I say that the world feels sometimes like not the most gracious place, I am reminded of something Diana Butler Bass lifts up early in this book. She says that there are some surveys that say about 8 out of 10 people feel really grateful at some point in time, like within a week. And she struggles with that because she couldn't really pinpoint in her own life a moment in the last 7 days where she just really felt overwhelmed emotionally by gratitude. And then she also struggled with that because there were other surveys that said the world feels really out of control to a majority of people. So where do we live in that dissonance, in that tension. Many people say we feel really grateful, and yet we also don't feel like we're observing that in the world. I think that is the invitation that I wonder about this morning. I think gratitude for us, feeling grateful, has got to be not only an emotional experience, but an action we take in a way that we engage and recognize the world around us differently. And in that way, gratitude is a lot like joy and love, not just something that we feel, but something that we do. This obviously takes me back to receiving gifts as a child and how my mother would be right on top of that moment saying, "Did you write your thank you notes yet?" And I would say I struggled with that. I still probably struggle with that as an adult, but it absolutely puts that tension right in front of me there. Did I feel something good when I received a gift that I really wanted? Absolutely. Was the way that I returned gratitude a part of that emotional joy? Or did it feel a little bit more like an obligation? Was it something I did really out of excitement and happiness? Or was saying thank you something I kind of felt like, yeah, thanks, I need to do this? In that tension, there is an important thing for me that in the thank you note that is hard for me to write sometimes because it feels forced. It feels like it doesn't come from my heart, but it comes from my mind maybe, that I know I have to do this, is absolutely a recognition that something good has happened, a recognition of a blessing, a recognition that something is worth being grateful for. There's all kinds of tension with that we live through. Part of that, I think, is in the world. Sometimes when people do nice things for us and give us gifts, there are sometimes strings attached. Has that ever happened with you? Never, right? Never, never, never. Especially not with faith in the church, ever would there be strings attached to generosity or gifts or something like that. We live in a transactional society. I give you something, you owe me something. I give you a gift, will you return it back? I make space for you, do you make space for me? And so it can feel like we end up running up a debt or an IOU with people in our lives, and even with family, even with friends. Unconditional love is a very difficult thing in our society to process because so often there's this sense of transactional relationship. At least in a faith sense, I think the invitation is to move out of that way of thinking and into whatever it could mean to truly have unconditional love and unconditional gratitude without feeling like, oh, someone did something good for me and so now I owe them. Or I've got to behave right, do right, be right before someone will then be nice or be good. Can you see how that might connect with God? Man, I better believe right, do right, live right, and then God will give me blessings and joy and wealth and health. Or, man, life was really good and God is on my side and then things go very terribly. Am I in debt to God? Do I owe God something? Do I need to change what I'm doing to get right with God? Our faith relationship, as we understand it, is not a transaction with God. It begins with grace. It begins with love. It begins saying, you have everything already. So can we be liberated then from this sense of debt or favor or obligation and into joy? I wonder what that would look like for us, to not see God as someone who is keeping us on the hook, but also for us not to see our neighbors that way either, or our family or our friends that way either. I am very, very tempted to want to talk in the very big picture about gratitude changing our society. You know, I mentioned that, like, I feel this tension of, like, people say in the big picture, like 80% of people say that they feel really, really grateful. And yet the world says otherwise. The evidence doesn't show it. I know that we're going to get into those world issues over the next few weeks and where gratitude can take us in our work of being disciples for the transformation of the world. But I want to invite us into a more personal conversation about gratitude, and at least where I have been sitting with this psalm and this idea this week. I want nothing more than for each of us to feel so grateful for what we have and the people around us that world peace just bubbles up out of this room, through our church, into our town, across our country, that we would spread social holiness across this land as John Wesley would want us to, because we just take grace and thanksgiving so seriously as a lifestyle. But I'm not sure that that does justice to where we begin the conversation. I want to end up there. I want to end up with God's kingdom coming and God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven, because we recognize immediately the goodness of the things that God has given us and the goodness of the people around us. Because our world is absolutely hurting and in need of that, be it when another life is lost in a police incident in our town, or be it whenever people want to burn their shoes because protests are happening and we feel so at odds with one another. If gratitude could do something about the heartaches there, I believe it can. But those heartaches begin with individual pains and individual brokenness and individual seeking and hungering for something to change. And so I want to start there and at least share a little bit with you about how I personally process those things, and that my personal prayer, my personal contemplation, my personal need for healing and growth and gratitude would then lead me into action, lead me to respond where God is calling me, and maybe lead me to live gratefully, even if I don't always feel grateful. There are times that the world can feel very heavy and dark and dry. I'll speak for myself, but I imagine I'm not alone in that. I want to put these final verses 7 and 8 of this psalm up here from a different translation, because I think they speak to the reality and the real struggle of feeling grateful. It's hard to feel grateful, I think, when life feels at its hardest and darkest. And so these are verses 7 and 8 from the Common English Bible. That's the typical translation we read from here. It says, "Whenever I am in deep trouble, you make me live again. You send your power against my enemy's wrath. You save me with your strong hand. The Lord will do all this for my sake. Your faithful love lasts forever, Lord. Don't let go of what your hands have made." So these first verses, I love it. We're talking about giving thanks with our whole hearts and singing before the heavens about how good God is, and all of the world will see how good God is. And there's this shift there, because sometimes we feel very lowly and deserted, and God looks down upon us even in our low state, and God doesn't want anything to do with the haughty, the arrogant, the proud, the powerful. I really resonate with these verses because there are moments where I have had in my own heart, or I know in our world, where I wonder, man, I'm in deep trouble. Am I going to live again? Am I going to have joy again? Am I going to be happy again? And I have moments in my life where it feels like everything surrounding me is bad or noise or antagonistic. Is there salvation for me and hope for me in those moments? And I love the hope that it says, the Lord will do this. God's love lasts forever. But I love the way that it phrases this last line. Don't let go of what your hands have made. I have absolutely had moments in the last few years where we have just felt that our family can't catch a break, or that we just can't get out of some sense of desperation or looking for some kind of hope. And I've wondered, am I all alone in this? Is anyone beside me? I would long for someone to be so close to me and not let go of me no matter what. I think those are the moments that I have had to learn the most about recognizing where God is and recognizing what I have already. I want to put these, the first line and the last line up here together to think about. Whenever I'm in deep trouble, you make me live again. And don't let go of what your hands have made. I consider these words, and I think there's almost something like romantic about them, or like I said, maybe almost desperate about them. It's very intimate and vulnerable to say, I need life again. And it's very desperate to say, please don't let go of me. There is some tradition that says these words were written when people were living in exile far away from their home, that their temple had been destroyed by foreign armies, that many of their leaders or maybe people themselves had been ripped from their home and lived with enemies all around. And we're looking for some sign. God, show me that you're here. Show me we're not alone. Show me we have a way forward. Help us live again and don't let go of us, even if we can't imagine a better future right now. Now, maybe this was written by David and sung in his courts, but it became deeply poignant and meaningful to the people of Israel in exile, away from home, in a dark, heavy, dry time. When I've found myself in those positions, I've needed someone to come alongside me and remind me. Sometimes that's been a counselor that I see, or a person who's a mentor or a pastor for me, or a friend to me, to sit down and say, you're not alone. And sometimes it's not that they give me the best words that are like, here's the Bible verse you've been looking for. Here's the key to unlock your pain. Sometimes it's just their presence that tells me you're not alone. I have a mentor who sits down and, especially when I'm struggling with things, just asks the question. And he says, I know you're not going to like me asking this, but I'm going to ask it. Where is God right now? When I feel at my most heavy or dark or dry places, like, my first gut reaction is to say, well, God is so far away from me right now. Like, I really feel what that second part of it says, that, God is way up high, and in my imagination, God is with the people who are living life great, the powerful, the rich, the blessed, and I don't feel that right now. But that's not the story of this psalm. The psalm says, no, God is not far away from me. Even when I feel most far, or most low, or most down and out, God is also there. And these words remind me that God is truly everywhere. And it's not that I have some magic code to remind me, some magic formula to remind me. It's the basics of my faith that tell me, if I take it seriously, I believe God is everywhere, and the presence of God is in everything and every person. Where can I recognize that, even in the most basic things that are giving me life right now? And that's where that question, where is God, becomes this reminder. It's this exercise. What's keeping me alive right now, even in its most basic moments? And so I talk with this friend and I say, well, I still have my house. I have my partner or my family or my job. Sometimes those basic things, it's like, oh yeah, God is in that. I have the friend who's sitting next to me, having the conversation with me, not forgetting me, not leaving me alone. God is in that. Sometimes those very basic things are what help me get my feet out of the bed, onto the floor, into work, into life, into whatever is next. And the hope is in that one moment. That the gratitude is in recognizing in that moment that, no, I'm not completely alone. No, I am not completely abandoned. I am not completely on my own. Even in those small things, God is there. I say from time to time, but I think God uses people to answer prayer. And so God may not be the great shining light miracle in those darkest, heaviest moments, but God may be the person who is faithfully there dealing with me, complaining about whatever I'm going through, or there with me, carrying it with me with no judgment, saying tangibly by their actions, you are not alone. And my gratitude for that may not be this overwhelming emotional experience that's, thank you, God, for all of this right now. I feel so happy. But it may be an acceptance and a recognition that says, oh yes, you're right. The heaviness would give me fear and a lie that says I'm alone. but the presence of people around me, the presence of even the basic things that I can say thank you for, tell me that I am not alone and that the truth is that I am loved. So what does it mean to hold on to that? This is a little messy, but this is the very personal thing. We're going to sing a song after this by Bob Dylan because sometimes you need the prophet like him to give you the words that you can't have for yourself. It's a love song called If Not For You. And part of why I wanted to sing that is because it's this very personal recognition of the people around you and of the basic things. If not for you, I couldn't find the floor. I couldn't see the door. I couldn't see the sunlight shining through. Sometimes God is in those people who remind us of even the basic things and don't let go. Even the basic things that give us life. Even the simple things. I think that recognition, even of the simple, even of the seemingly small, those things are where gratitude is born for me over and over again. It's where joy is born for me over and over again. It's where love is born for me and hope is born for me over and over and over again. When I'm praying for a miracle, when I'm hoping for some supernatural force to come in and make everything different in my biggest doubts and my biggest worries and my biggest pains, the recognition of the simple, the small, the good, those things show me that God is there holding on to me, not letting me go. And the acceptance of those gifts, even in the simple, seeing that it is good. Those things help me not only feel grateful, but hopefully live gratefully. But it is a choice I have to make. Will I receive the gift that it is of the truth that I'm not alone, or will I continue to live into the fear that says there's no hope? And friends, that is not easy work, and I don't want to take that for granted. I don't want to just say, think happy thoughts. Because we are interconnected and interdependent. So often in our hardest, heaviest, darkest moments when we are crying out in this prayer, give me life again, don't let go of me, so often what we are offered, at least by the culture that I find myself in, is to just take it alone, man. Be independent, carry it on your back, grit and bear it. You can't rely on anybody else. You got to make your own way and you got to power through. That gets us back into that transactional relationship. No one has helped me out, so I better make my own way. The recognition and what gratitude can look like is an alternative that says, no, I absolutely rely on other people. I absolutely rely on God's grace and love every single day. I absolutely can lean on and rely on the people around me in this community, in this faith community, let alone my family and my friends. So I hope we have a couple of personal questions this morning, but I hope that those personal questions lead us into more public and social faith. Can you think of these moments where you've needed to be alive again? And what showed you the good? Can you think of the moments where you were crying out, please don't let go of me, and someone was there responding? The presence of God was there responding. Can we say thank you for those things? And can then we think of those who may be asking those questions right now? Wondering, is God very far away and I'm so low? How do I know that God is not so far away, but that God is concerned with me? Who is there asking, will I know life and joy and hope again? And may we be the people who God shows up in as the hands and feet that say, no, you are not alone. We're the ones who could maybe be used by God to say, no, I'm not letting you go. I love what Paul says in Romans 12 about what the faith community looks like. He says, we rejoice with those who rejoice and we mourn with those who mourn. We carry the joys together and we carry the pain and the heaviness and the darkness and the dry times together too. You're not alone. I am here. Our church is here. I pray that maybe this is the call to be a part of a small group or something, that other people are there with you in a Sunday school class or in a group that you meet with once a week. There's also wonderful people who have been called to be mental health professionals too. If you are feeling anxiety or depression, the weight of this world on you, we absolutely have folks that we can get you in conversation with if you need that. There, I know, is still some stigma and shame around, oh, am I weak? Have I failed? Have I not done enough? Am I not good enough that I can't find the joy, the hope, the life, whatever it is? Friends, that is the fear telling you a lie. You are not alone, and I hope that you know that tangibly with the presence of the people of God around you. So maybe we ask those questions this week. We'll talk more about gratitude shaping and changing the world. We'll talk more about God using us for things we can't imagine about how gratitude can reshape those deepest tensions and hurts in our world. But I hope that you consider your own pains, your own needs for healing, your own desires for justice, and how God's presence can be recognized and how a life of gratitude is there for each of us. Amen.